Hey everybody. So I have two fun videos that I was working on that are both about 80 to 90% complete, and they should be posted within the next few days hopefully. But until then, I wanted to do a real quick one for you today, mostly because it just came to my attention, and it is far too good to pass up. So in a recent episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan was chatting it up with MMA fighter Bo Nickel. And as usually is the case on Rogan's program, the topic of politics came up. In the following clip, both Joe and his guests make it clear that neither of them are fans of Joe Biden, which by itself isn't particularly remarkable. However, one thing that was noteworthy was one of the reasons Rogan gave for his low opinion of Biden.
Well, you know, there's people that voted for Biden that are doing it now. They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, you just can't listen to an interview or he's saying some of the stuff he says that just makes no sense at all. It's like you can't listen to those interviews and feel like you made a good decision. I don't know how you could.
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple of days ago?
Mm-mm.
He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I saw that. Like, what the hell?
Like, pull him.
It's crazy.
If you had any other job and you were talking like that,
yeah,
they would go, "Hey, you're done."
If you talk like that to a doctor at your medical exam to fight, they'd be like, "Okay, like obviously you're not fighting." You would also here's 8 weeks of being helped out by a professional, like
right. You might not ever do anything again.
No, it's one of the wildest things ever.
It's insane.
Yeah,
and the media gaslighting you.
So as you just saw, both Rogan and his guest agree that Biden flubbing his words, such as he did, is completely worthy of mockery, and yet another sign that the man is just completely beyond hope as president of the United States at this stage. Again, typical stuff from Rogan at this point. But soon the conversation takes a much more interesting turn, because a few minutes later, Rogan's producer Jamie, God bless the man's soul, did his due diligence and tracked down the clip that Rogan was talking about. And here is where the fun begins.
Well, it's just the media narrative. I mean, so many people were fed this lie that the Russia collusion.
Yeah.
Was this?
Was this the video you're talking about?
Let me see what this one says. I don't think it is.
What? By the way, the same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports. Whoa.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
Right,
what?
Just for the record.
Is that fake?
It's not fake, but he was referencing Trump saying that. Here's what Trump saying it in 2019.
Oh.
Donald Trump said something about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's right. The line about the airports during the Revolutionary War that Rogan thought was such an embarrassing and unforgivable act coming from Biden was actually said by Rogan's preferred very stable genius candidate, Donald J. Trump. Now, before we go any further, just for fun, ask yourself how Rogan and his guest might react to this revelation. Now let us see their actual reaction.
Yeah.
So he fucked up.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like you can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you could tell he like messed up his words, but yeah. He was just, I don't know.
To go over the airports.
Well, that's the thing about media these days. It's like,
right.
You got to look into it.
That's right. If you guessed that they were going to brush it off as no big deal after all, then congrats. You just earned a gold star. But while this wasn't remotely surprising, it was still incredible. What Rogan initially complained Biden doing was an offense worthy of complete disqualification from the position of high elected office is then casually dismissed and laughed away for Trump as just merely fucking up. Imagine that. Also, let's once again play back Bo Nickel attempting to salvage the situation.
But I feel like
Took over
that's
the airport.
you can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you could tell he like messed up his words, but yeah. He was just, I don't know.
I just love how he's trying to come up with an excuse beyond he messed up his words. And he clearly wants to muster a better defense, but is completely unable to come up with anything else, so he just gives up towards the end. But let us also not ignore the final chef kiss moment at the end of the clip.
Took over the airport.
Well, that's the thing about media these days. It's like
right.
You
never
gotta
know.
look into it.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Taking a completely made up story that they themselves discovered, more than likely going to a media source that they trusted, and then upon realization that said story was completely fake, using that very same fake story and falling for it as proof that people shouldn't trust media sources that would have debunked the very same fake story they fell for. I have no idea if this guy is skilled in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he's definitely skilled in cognitive Jiu-Jitsu. And all this was done while both of these idiots were, mere minutes ago, condescendingly criticizing the mainstream media for quote-unquote gaslighting their audiences. Reminds me of when Trump was on David Letterman's show several years ago and was bragging about how his products were made in America, to which Letterman did a bit of detective work, resulting in this exchange.
Ties, where are the ties
They have
made?
to work
These are
too.
beautiful ties.
They are great ties.
The ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
Yep, definitely the same energy as with Rogan. Got caught red-handed, but still just doesn't give a shit. And to be fair, I guess, why should he? It's not like it's going to make any difference whatsoever. Because as much as people like Rogan accuse the people who don't like him of being NPCs, his audience is made up of nothing but NPCs. And as their name implies, they don't give a shit that he lied about what happened and was corrected after the fact and then tried to downplay it. What's funny is that before, Joe Rogan had this reputation of just being a regular guy who just had a lot of questions about everything. He was a skeptic and a conspiracy theorist, but he would admit he didn't know much about anything and that nobody should listen to him on anything. Because at the end of the day, he was a self-admitted big dumb gorilla with a podcast. But in recent times, it seems pretty clear that Joe wants to convince people that the gorilla has evolved into a man with a really big brain, the kind that you can think real long and hard with and such. And now you should absolutely listen to what he says about pretty much anything, but especially when he complains about the people that he doesn't like, who he thinks are ruining society as well as Western civilization. So yeah, this was truly an amazing clip. It had everything. Two incredibly smug, conspiracy-addled idiots thinking they're smarter than everyone else, insisting that no one should trust anything that the mainstream media will tell you, then invoking a completely fabricated story that they probably found in some kind of chain email, but still took it as gospel to smear a politician they didn't like, then eventually finding out they were completely full of shit, and that this egregiously moronic thing that they were so up in arms about was actually said by a politician they happen to support, and so they immediately start to downplay it as no big deal whatsoever, actually. And then using the very same example that these Neanderthals completely bought into as an example of why no one should trust any non-right-wing media outlet. Rogan started off the clip complaining that the mainstream media was gaslighting their audiences, and then ended the clip with him and his guest literally gaslighting his own audience. You can't make this shit up. Hey guys, so like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have 2 more videos in the works that are both almost complete. I once again apologize for the staggered releases. I was making an effort to try to release at least 1 video per week, and I guess I got tangled up working on multiple videos at once. And before I knew it, 2 weeks had already gone by. But the good news is that these 2 should be released in the next couple of days, so look forward to them. Thanks again for waiting patiently, and once again, if you like my work, please donate to my Patreon. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.